Hello, friends. I'm Anderson Marchak,
And I'm Ricardo Segura.
and we are the Panel Bros. Welcome to the panel.
Welcome to the panel.
Okay. Ricardo and I have been speaking about this for some time off the air,
Oh, yeah.
and we've held off long enough. We are starting the filmography of Christopher Nolan.
The GOAT, my boy. The GOAT.
So, those of you who aren't familiar with our love for Nolan, either on the show or if you know us personally, this is our favorite director.
Dude. Nolan, I've told you before, and I said it time and time again. For those who don't know me, Nolan is that one director. I don't have to see a trailer. I don't have
Yeah.
to see a teaser. If you say, hey, there's a movie coming out, Christopher Nolan is directing, I'm like, all right, winter tickets going on sale. I am purchasing immediately. He's got me sold no matter what.
Yeah, absolutely. So, we're going to be doing the filmography, major studio releases. So, any of the independent ones. Sorry, folks. We're not going to do Doodlebug and Following. Not going to
Yeah.
happen. We're starting today with Memento.
Oh, yeah.
So, Memento was released on March 16th of 2001, and this was Nolan's first chance with a major studio. So, Summit Entertainment, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, this panel will sound backwards when you hear it. So we're just gonna put the pieces in order like a memento. I'm kidding.
It's funny you mentioned that because with all the information I could try to find online, there wasn't like an outline I could follow that does it backwards. It was too confusing. So,
Yeah, I did it. I saw people put it in
yeah,
order to
so
talk about it.
yeah, so we're gonna do the same thing. We're gonna separate it and talk about it in order, but we'll interject as far as the framing of the movie.
Mhm.
So there's, oh man, this is so hard to explain this. There's actually three separate timelines going on.
Yes.
One is the past. It's black and white. Leonard's on the phone talking to a mystery person, and he's recounting uh, his times as an insurance investigator, talking about Sammy Jankis, who we will talk about more uh, throughout this episode. And then we have the present, which is in color, and that's happening as we're seeing it happen um, during the movie. It's in real time, but it keeps happening backwards. Like we'll see the scene,
Backwards.
and then we'll see the ending of the previous scene, and then it just
It's
keeps going like
so
that.
It's so creative, man,
Yeah,
because I couldn't imagine. I would love to be a fly on the wall, or at least to pick his brain and ask him like, "Hey, when you wrote this, did you write it in linear order and then put it backwards, or were you actually having a lot of fun and say, you know what, I'm gonna start here, and then I'm gonna write on how we're gonna get there, and
right.
actually almost had the." I'm really curious how he did it because it's really cool in execution.
Absolutely. And there's sort of a third timeline, and it's from the time that the black and white goes into the color.
Yeah,
And
it
then
merges.
that timeline is before the actual movie happens. So it's the black and white, the merging sequence, and then the actual movie, which we see first. So
Listen, and if
stay
there's
stay stay with us, folks.
if Nolan has shown us anything,
Yeah.
is that he loves messing with time.
Yeah.
Like it's a common theme in a lot of his movies is time, and I appreciate that. So again, it's really cool, but I feel like it's definitely one of those films that you really have to pay attention, because if you don't, if you take your eye off the ball for just even a second, you're gonna be like, wait, okay, where are we at right now? Where? And I love the way it's done.
Yes, absolutely. So all right. So the movie itself, the opening scene, it starts with here's a throwback, a Polaroid, a Polaroid
Yeah.
camera, taking a picture here of a man that is dead, and he's on the ground there, and you see the Polaroid, shake it like a Polaroid picture, just
Yes.
it's getting shaken, and we slowly see it come into focus here. Well, you already see it, but every time it shakes, it keeps going back to that white Polaroid
Yes.
as if it just came out of the camera. Yeah. So
It's again, it's so cool, man.
yeah, you're like gripping us from the start, from the
Like
opening frame. Like, what is this movie
right
about?
away, like from the like I this is one of those movies that I would love to show a friend and not tell them anything.
Right,
Like, have you seen Memento? No? Okay, let's put it on, let's watch it. Because again, right from the gate, he does a really good job of showing you just in that simple moment, you see him shaking the Polaroid, but it's already like completely clear. We see exactly what it is, and it starts to lose that focus, and you're like,
right.
oh, right out the gate, we're
Yeah,
backwards. I love it.
exactly. Yeah, and then you see Leonard, Guy Pearce. You see
Mhm.
everything happen, in reverse to get to that moment. So whatever he throws, and then the picture goes back up into the camera. It's really nice. So we have an interaction between Teddy and Leonard,
Mhm.
and uh, they're they're having an argument, and Leonard looks at a photograph, and it says, "Don't believe his lies." He is the one. Kill him on the thing, and
Mhm.
they have a little scuffle. They have this argument, and Teddy's bagging with them. He's just like, "You don't even know what's going on. You don't have a clue. You don't have
Yeah.
a clue." And like, we're just like, "What is happening here?" There's this mystery. It's like, let's go in the basement. Let me show you. And then Leonard's just so like, "No, you're gonna die." And then he shoots him, and then we get our first cut.
Yeah. It's again, it's so engaging because right from the gate, we're like, okay, how are we ending up here? Like
Right.
we're starting off with the ending.
That's
So
the ending of the movie.
everything coming into fruition right now is how we're getting there. And I thought it's so cool because it's like, all right, the as soon as you see, like you said on the photos, like, don't believe his lies.
Right.
Don't believe it. And so I'm like, okay, so clearly he found out something about him. What are we gonna find out? Again, really well executed.
Yeah, and I'd like to add that Joe Pantoliano,
Mhm.
he's got this really great delivery. He's usually kind of, I don't want to say likable, but he's so charismatic whenever we see him in
Yes.
roles. He's a very
Yes.
talented actor, and in this role especially. But already there's a seed of doubt because we
Mhm.
see it says, "Don't believe his lies," and then he's the one kill him. Just
Yeah.
like, what is happening here? So now the entire movie, we're thinking like, okay, so how are we getting here?
Yeah.
Can we trust Teddy? And and obviously we have no idea what's going on in the basement. So we need,
Nope.
it's a really nice mystery that we get from the very start of the movie. So I definitely wanted to add that. So let's look at the black and white sequences, and we can
Okay.
take a look at that. So the black and white, it's mostly Leonard on the phone, and he's speaking to somebody on the phone. We don't know who that is, and Leonard has uh, I can't pronounce this, anterograde amnesia,
Mhm.
and he has memories up until when an accident happens, but he can't make new memories.
Yeah.
So he remembers himself, his life, how to do certain things, but when you're talking to him within 5, 10, 15 minutes, he's going to lose everything again.
Yeah.
So really unique situation. He explains that it happened because he was attacked by two men in his house, and he killed one of the attackers who sexually assaults his wife, and the other and strangled his wife too.
Mhm.
And the second one hits him over the head, and then that's the accident that causes the memory situation. He says the police don't believe that there was another attacker, believes that Leonard um, got the only person that was there,
Mhm.
but Leonard believes that there's another man out there by the name of John G. And that now we have our plot here. He's looking for John G. So that's going to be the entire movie there. They let us know that he has to use notes to keep
Yeah.
himself in line, and Polaroid photos. He takes pictures and writes a note on it because this was so the movie ages itself. This is before camera phones
Yeah.
where he could just take pictures and such. So we also have the uh, the iconic tattoos all over the
Yeah.
body.
Yes.
Yeah. So and once
And they're
again,
and they're they're backwards, so when he looks into a mirror, he can read it properly.
correct. And then once again, more mystery because we have no
Mhm.
idea what the tattoos mean.
Yeah,
They're
they're
just
they're all over the place, and they say
yeah,
they're like very short messages. So you don't get a full paragraph. It's kind of like an address, a name of an individual, a location, and you're like, okay, it's like a roadmap of mystery.
absolutely. I I would not want to be Guy Pearce sitting in the makeup chair every day having to do that. So so while on the phone, Leonard discusses Sammy Jankis,
Hmm.
and it's somebody else who has anterograde amnesia, and it was while he was an insurance investigator. There were tests done on Sammy, and it learned that even through repetition, Sammy couldn't make new memories. He wouldn't,
Yeah.
learn the new things. And Leonard believed that it was a psychological situation, not a physical situation, and that Sammy was probably faking. And he made the decision. He submitted rather as a insurance investigator to turn down the insurance claim.
Hmm.
And we see various scenes with Sammy and his wife, and his poor wife is just taking care of him at this point.
Yeah.
Um, the amnesia is so bad that he can't watch a show because he'll forget what's happening. He
Yeah.
said
It's
that
too
he
confusing.
he liked commercials because they were short,
Yeah.
and he would, but he would just like watching TV just because it was. What else could he do? Were you going to read a book and then within 1 or 2 pages you're going to forget what you're reading?
Yep.
You know, Very debilitating situation. And Sammy's wife, after getting that information from Leonard, she wanted to see if Sammy was really faking it. Obviously, it would be horrible if he was,
Yeah.
because he'd been putting his wife and everybody through this. But so the situation is Sammy's wife has diabetes and she has to get insulin
Hmm.
injections. So she decided to test him to see if he would keep giving them to her, and knowing it could possibly hurt her, but she's just so lost. She has no hope at this point because the insurance got turned down. I want to know for myself,
Hmm.
So, Sammy, it's time for my shot. Okay, because he remembers how to do that because of before he lost,
Yep.
he became the amnesiac, and he does it. Sammy, it's time for my shot. And I like the framing here because she chooses a different body part each time,
Yes.
first leg, arm, et cetera, et cetera. And he keeps going, keeps
Yeah.
going, keeps going. And, uh, that's not good for somebody that needs to keep getting an insulin shot. Even if you need insulin, one is good. So
Yeah.
to keep getting it over and over and over
It's
again.
it's pretty heartbreaking because you could see it in her face because she
Mm,
even mentions it. She says along the lines of like, this was a good test for her because she knows that he loves her and would not want to bring any
correct.
harm to her whatsoever. So the fact that he was continuing to do it each time, you see her emotionally just more and more distraught because it's starting to become a realization. Okay, no, this is real
Right.
because he's just pumping me full of insulin without
Right.
any hesitation. He just kind of smiles,
Right.
"Oh, okay, it's time for your insulin," and it's just like it's such a sad scene. It's a
Right.
very very sad scene.
And I wonder if she knew what was going to happen to her. Had she already, was it a situation of, I'm giving up on life at this point because if this is not a life I want to live,
Yeah,
And I mean, she had to have known it was going to kill her, or at least
I
harm her in a very big way.
I I'm on the boat that I think she knew.
Yeah.
And I think that's why it was such a dangerous test. Obviously in the office that you see her breaking down with Leonard, where she's just like, I just need to know, I just need to
Right.
know. And you see her, she's just like, you know how hard it is to see him every day and to not have those moments of clarity where it's ever going to get past a certain point. It's always
Right.
we're always gonna be stuck in the past. And she's like, I love him and I know he loves me. So I do think that at a point she knew, and as I'm watching it, I'm like, but she's not stopping
Not
him.
stopping him.
And that was the part that hurt me the most as a viewer, where I was like you said, like maybe this was her. The If she was gonna find out that he wasn't faking it, this was that moment, and she was also just gonna let it
It
happen
was going to
because
cost her
it
her
was
life to find out,
yeah, it was gonna.
basically.
She was
Yeah.
willing to give her life to find out if it was true or not.
Because it would have been so easy for her to say, "Oh, no, stop. I already had
Yep,
it."
nope, I already have it, but she
But
kept
she needed to
letting him
see
do it.
him inject her to know that he wasn't faking, unfortunately.
Yeah,
So, she ends up going into a coma and passing away. So, Um, uh, Great delivery from the actress, by the way,
Oh,
because she
she
said,
killed it.
"Sammy, it's time for my shot." I wrote that down here. Every single time she said it was different every single time, and
Mhm.
I just thought that was really cool. It was Harriet Sansom Harris as Mrs.
Yep.
Jenkins. So
And again, and that's why I said each time she says it, you see her get more and more distraught.
yeah,
She changes the time on her watch, her voice inflection changes, her eyes, and you can see whatever hope that she had
right.
leaving. It's just leaving, and it's just like, oh man, this is truly awful. And he has no idea what's happening because she just starts to go into a coma in front of him. She starts to just drop, and he's like hugging. He has no idea what's happening. It's such a heartbreaking scene.
Yeah, absolutely. And throughout this flashback story, um, just Leonard is just so emotionally vested in the story because he now has the same condition Sammy had. That's what
Yep.
he keeps saying, remember Sammy Jankis, remember Sammy Jankis, because it's tattooed on his hand, and he
Yep.
always tells everybody, you know, about that. We get to see Sammy going through tests. It's actually an in-depth story, even though it's in black and white and flashbacks. Like the Sammy Jenkins story is very important to Leonard's
Mhm.
story. So that's the black and white sequences, and we'll get to when it fades later here. The color sequences are the main timeline for the story,
Mhm.
and it's shown in reverse. And as far as the story goes, we see Leonard getting a tattoo of John G's license plate, and he finds a note in his clothes, and he goes to meet Natalie, a bartender, and she has a problem with Leonard because he's wearing the clothes and driving the car of her boyfriend Jimmy Grant's,
Mhm.
and he explains the situation to her, and it's just like, how is this happening? Um, she had a really nice way of proving it in the
Oh,
bar.
she did. She did.
Yeah, yeah, with the bar bet there. Hard scene to watch because
Yeah.
she goes to the well. It's funny because she goes to the one patron and he spits in the beer, beer mug. She spits in it, and then she asks Leonard to spit into it. Well, all three of them anyway. And then she stirs it up and places it to the side.
Yep.
Then Leonard's like, "What's this?" She's like, "Ah, bar bet. Come on, join in."
Yeah, join
You
in.
know. And not even a few minutes later, she gives Leonard that same beer, and he drinks it,
He
not
drinks it.
knowing everybody spit in it, and you could hear a guy giggling
He
in the
laughs.
background.
Yep, he
And
laughs.
then
He laughs at him.
that's the cutoff point for the next scene,
Yep.
so you hear it again when you when it happens,
Yep.
you know?
She had her way of figuring it out, and she did it. She was like, "Okay, he's not BSing here."
Absolutely. So, Natalie decides to take advantage of Leonard's condition. She wants to get
Yeah.
rid of a man called Dodd, and she offers to run the license plate for him through a friend that works at the DMV. We get a situation here where our first time seeing Natalie, it isn't this though. We see Natalie all beat up, sitting down with
Yeah.
him at the restaurant. Um, she's got sunglasses on. She's got a split lip. She's really messed up. I noticed here, um, while she was doing her delivery, there was a lot of zooming in on her hands.
Mhm.
There was a lot of cuts here, back and forth between her and Leonard. I don't know about you, but every time I watch this, even though I know what's going to happen, you can now see that it looks like Natalie had something to hide.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those films that I think when you watch it more than once, you see the little ticks that you wouldn't notice the first time. And there's a lot of things that happen, especially with her character, with Natalie, like you mentioned, where she takes advantage. Where the first time we meet her, like you said, the movie's out of order. It's backwards. So when we see her, she's bruised, she's battered, and she's like, "Oh, you don't remember me, do you?" And they're establishing this conversation. So initially, I'm kind of like, "Oh, what happened to this woman?" Like what happened to her. He's obviously helping her. We're going to figure this out. But then if you start rewatching, you start seeing body language and little things here and there
Yeah,
that kind of put you down like, oh, I didn't catch that the first time because I wasn't looking for it. You know what I mean? But now you're like, wait, now that you know a little bit more, you spot little things.
absolutely. Um, I thought that the one scene in the house was just
It's
disgusting.
rough. Rough scene.
Disgusting. Her delivery, she was straight up evil in that scene, just cursing him out. I could say
Carrie Ann
whatever
Moss,
the
man.
Yeah, man.
Just killed it.
Yeah, just, well, there's something to be said about those types for
Mhm.
acting wise. They casted her really well. They wanted somebody that you could hate easily in that
Yeah.
scene. You're not gonna get somebody with, uh, wholesome looks, so to speak. She's got this raven hair, these piercing
Mm-mm.
eyes, the strong, you know, facial structure. They made it really easy for you to hate her in that scene.
Yeah, and again, the first time we meet her, it's a very different vibe. Like, I don't hate her. I'm like, "What
No,
what happened to her?"
not at
And
all.
then as this scene is happening, I'm like, "Ooh, you're disgusting." Like, I'm
Right,
getting disgusted by the scene, and all of a sudden, again, this movie does a really good job of giving you a piece of information somewhere, and then it starts to trail backwards, and you're starting to see things, and
right,
you're like, "Wait a minute."
right.
And this scene is, it's heavy, and it's just
Oh yeah,
gross.
she's
It's
calling
just
him really disgusting things. She keeps calling him a freak because of his
mm,
disability. She keeps calling him the R word. Like
R Yep.
it's really awful.
She goes after his wife, like
Yeah, like she goads him, ends up hitting her. That's why.
yeah,
So she could Oh, and I like the framing that they did too with her hiding all the pens because he doesn't know why
yes.
she's hiding the pens when she comes in, and then you get
Mhm.
to find out. And I thought with Leonard panicking, with trying to find the pens to write down this whole situation that happened, it was done really well because we got the sense of seeing him lose his memory in real time.
Yeah,
You
and
know,
you hear him just yelling at himself internally, don't forget, don't forget, you gotta remember, you have
right?
to remember what just happened, you have to remember what just
Nope.
happened." Because again, she's goading him hard, she says it, she goes, "I can say whatever I want to you, and in a few minutes, you're not gonna remember, and you're still gonna like me. You're
Right.
gonna think we're friends, and I'm gonna call your wife a disgusting name, I'm gonna say I'm happy she's dead, and you're not gonna do anything," and
Right.
she's goading him so bad, and it finally happens, and
Right.
then you start to realize why she hid the pens.
Exactly. So we shift to Leonard meeting with Teddy, who wants to help out with the Dodd situation, and he warns about Natalie. Um, and then they have a little exchange. Who's that, Dodd? You don't know. No, I don't know. It's just like, yes, you do know.
Yes, you do know.
You just forgot. I will say this: there was a lot of funny moments in the movie,
Oh, yeah.
here and there. One in particular, I remember where it's like he's running and Dodd's running alongside him.
Yes. Such a good joke.
Yeah, it's just like, all right, so I'm chasing this guy.
"Oh, he's chasing me."
Then the gunshot.
It's so
But
good because and that I can't imagine what that would have been like to kinda come to where you are in that moment. Like,
right,
it's in the middle of that run, he goes, "Okay, so I'm chasing this guy, gunshots, alright, I'm wrong, he's chasing
right,
me." You know
and
what
it
I
had
mean?
to be
Like, that's so crazy.
parallel,
Yeah.
side by side with the trailers. I think they were trailers, like, separating them
Mhm.
because clearly nobody's going to be chasing you if you're not going to be chasing somebody if they're behind you. It had to be
Exactly.
parallel. So that was really cool how they did that. Um, oh yeah, and I thought the car chase was pretty funny too, because Dodd's like honking his horn at him. He has no idea who Dodd is at this point.
He's like, I don't again, there's a lot of and it's not like silly funny, it's just funny based on the circumstances of what's wrong with Leonard, and it's like, yeah, he has no idea.
Right, right. And then they pull over and he just what the F, bang, shoot, and then he
Yeah,
drives
like,
off.
he goes, "Oh, okay, this is happening,
Yeah,
gotta
yeah,
go."
he shows the gun and he just drives off. It's hilarious. So Leonard finds the Polaroid of Teddy that tells him not to trust Teddy.
Mhm.
It says don't believe his lies. Um, Natalie ends up meeting up with Leonard. This is where we actually in real time get to see them at the restaurant with the license, and that's our introduction to Natalie. It's
Yeah,
we're kind of like, oh, she's helping Leonard. That's nice. What a nice lady. She's helping
exactly.
Leonard. And it's like, oh no, she's not. She's not
No,
nice at all.
she's using them.
She's using them. So John Edward Gamble, and it's Teddy's information. We didn't find out that it was Teddy's information. The person that's been helping, air
Mhm.
quotes, Leonard this entire time. So apparently Leonard's like, oh, John Edward Gamble, John G. Maybe he's my John G.
Yeah.
You know. So Leonard drives Teddy to the to the building, and then they have their argument, which opened the movie, and that's when he shoots Teddy after their
Yep.
argument. We're going to shift now to when everything bleeds into the color, from the black and white into the color, and this is where we get all of our answers.
Yeah.
So near the end of the black and white sequence here, the mystery caller, Leonard ends up meeting up with Teddy and an undercover officer by the name of John G. And it's Jimmy Grants.
Mm-hmm.
And we get to find out that's who Leonard's been on the phone with Jimmy Grants. Yeah. And so to kind of like navigate the situation, Leonard goes to the abandoned building to meet up with Jimmy. And when Jimmy arrives, Leonard ends up having an argument with him because Leonard thinks this is his John G.
Yes.
So Leonard strangles him, and he takes a picture of of Jimmy after he kills him. And as they do a really cool thing, as the Polaroid develops, that's when it bleeds into the color.
Yeah,
So,
it's so well done. It goes from gray and it just bleeds into color, and I was like, "Oh, that's such a good creative choice."
Yeah, and the way Nolan did it, like he had to do it with the Polaroid as it was coming into focus. So that was really cool. So Leonard ends up changing clothes with Jimmy, and as Jimmy is like kind of fading away, he hears him say Sammy. And it's just like, uh-oh, I only tell Sammy to people that I trust,
Yep.
And now it's just like, did I just kill the wrong guy?
Yeah.
So Teddy ends up showing up there. He starts having a discussion with Leonard about whether or not Jimmy Grants was John G. That's what I meant to say here. And, Leonard is just like, it was him, it wasn't him. They're going back and forth here. Teddy just finally puts a story out there.
Yeah.
He says, I know it wasn't him because I helped you kill the real John G a year ago.
A year ago. Right. A year ago.
A year ago. And, you've been getting used by everybody, including myself.
Yep.
And he says that the name John G is, it's not an uncommon name. It's very common. And Leonard just forgets, and he'll just keep making a search go again and again and again because it doesn't matter, even though they found the John G and that he was looking for. Teddy also reveals that Sammy Jankis doesn't exist.
Yeah.
And that Leonard made up, it's a psychological story that Leonard adopted as his own. And it's apparently it's supposed to be repressed feelings over the guilt of what happened, because apparently he says that his wife survived, and apparently this is what we're told. We're told that his wife survived, but the accident with the insulin, the insulin was his wife, not Sammy Jankis's wife.
Yes, that he used what a lot of people use, which is from a traumatic response, is they kind of create a new memory in order to protect themselves from the trauma. And according to Teddy, like you mentioned, his wife survived the attack. It was just a random attack who didn't realize that she actually lived with someone else. It wasn't anything more than that. And that after surviving the attack, while giving her insulin, he accidentally gave her too much due to his memory lapse and put her into a coma, and she died. And he created this Sammy Jankis to kind of deal with it. Right. So we're getting a lot of exposition now. We're just like, wait, what? And it's so interesting. And I'm not going to go too long here because, again, throughout the movie, Leonard has kept expressing that like facts are facts, like notes are notes. Memories cannot be trusted. He's saying, he goes, memories cannot be trusted. You can change the color of a room. You can change the type of a car. He knows this himself and yet could not see that he was also guilty of it.
Absolutely. Leonard is just distraught at this point. Because he's like, I don't believe you. No. And then he's going through the Polaroids and he pulls one out that we haven't seen yet. And Leonard is shirtless. He's pointing to his chest.
He's smiling.
right, he's smiling, and then there's like bloodstains all over it. And he's like, "That's when you did it. I'm the one that took the picture."
Mm-hmm.
You know? So Leonard's upset now at this point, because now it's just like, I thought I just killed John G, who, you know, is the cause of everything that happened to me. And now Leonard goes and does something which completely changes the entire movie,
Yep.
which it sets up our entire movie basically. Leonard burns the photograph of Jimmy. And there was a scene earlier where Natalie was trying to tear it up, and he's like, "You have to burn it." There was
You
like,
have to
I
burn it.
guess, yeah, that was like a foreshadowing, obviously, because you have to burn Polaroids to destroy them. And he burns a photo of Jimmy, and then the photo of him killing the real John G.
Yeah.
He burned that too, where it was pointing to his chest, and apparently that was supposed to be the spot that he was supposed to get the tattoo saying that you did it.
Mm-hmm.
It happened. Um, we got a monologue here that Leonard's willing to lie to himself in order to get justice against the people that have wronged him. And unfortunately, Teddy was just the person that was next. And
Yep.
it's the only thing that I'm sad. It's the only thing Leonard's living for anymore is finding John G, even though he won't remember it.
Yeah.
And Teddy is the cop that was I didn't talk about this, is the policeman that was assigned to his case. And he
Yes.
helped Leonard get revenge, even because the department didn't believe him that there was a second guy. So Teddy's been helping him this entire time, formed a friendship with him over it.
Yeah.
And to change the entire framing, this is where we get him. He takes a picture of Teddy's license plate because he's setting it up in his mind that this is going to be John G's license plate. And then he
Mm-hmm.
thinks about it for a second. Don't believe his lies.
Don't believe
He
his
writes
lies.
it right in the back of it. And then eventually that turns into he's the one kill him,
Yep.
but don't believe his lies, because then that'll give him the mystery, because Teddy tells him, you just want the mystery. You want to continue playing detective. This is the only thing keeping you happy, And so, it big mess, he drives off, and um he understands that that he's setting into motion, a lot of different things, but he's apparently Leonard doesn't have anything left to lose,
No. No.
so so we go from sympathizing with Leonard the whole movie to hating him by the end of the movie.
Bro, because he almost perpetually sets up this crazy loop in order to just, again, he's creating a barrier to not accept the truth and the reality of it.
Right.
He would rather forget and just continue on this endless loop of vengeance. There was a line that Teddy says to him. He goes, "Look at that photo, look at that smile." He goes, "You were truly happy because we got the guy. You got your
Right.
vengeance, but you forgot it. And ever since then, I wanted to help you constantly get that feeling back. So I used you. I used you to target people that were like bad people. I made them your John G.
Right.
And this is what we would do." And it's crazy because, like you said, like Teddy built like a relationship with him, a friendship, a bond. He felt for him. He helped him get vengeance. And at the end of the day, it didn't matter. He forgot. So there was nothing there. So he's like, "All right, I'm going to use you. We're going to do this. I'm going to help you on your quest to always fulfilling that." And Leonard just couldn't accept that.
Right.
He could
Right.
not
Because
accept that.
and that's what he did with Jimmy, because apparently Jimmy was a crooked cop.
Yep. Yep.
So, involved with drugs and such. So it's just like, well, the world's not going to miss him. So
Exactly.
that's what ended up happening in that situation here. And, you know, so that's our movie. It was very all over the place, but the movie was
The movie is all over the
yeah,
place.
yeah. So our discussion of it was kind of all over the place too. Um, this movie was recommended to me
Mhm.
by someone, by one of my former directors, actually, in amateur theater.
Okay.
And I saw it on home video at first. I didn't get to see the theatrical run. And it was the first time I'd seen something like this. And I had seen Pulp Fiction before. I'd seen
Yeah.
other movies where, like the Guy Ritchie style movies, where you see everything from different points of view. Snatch is another one I can remember, where the movie's out of order, but the movie is backwards.
Backwards.
And I don't think I've ever seen anything like that. And it kept making sense, even though it was backwards. And
Yes.
the only times I would kind of get confused the first time seeing it was the black and white sequences, is because I wasn't sure when that was happening timeline
Mhm.
wise, but the backwards thing, it just worked because you kept seeing what led up to that point. And then it kept going backwards. Um, what were your initial thoughts the first time you saw this movie, Ricardo?
This is one of those movies that I feel like the concept the first time I saw it, the concept blew me away because again, I would never sit to think there and come up with a story that you would tell backwards and have it be cohesive. Because usually when we watch a movie, a thriller or a mystery, anything of intrigue, we're collecting pieces along the way to figure something out. But in this one, we're backwards. We have the results. Now we're going to move backwards to find the pieces that led us to these results. And it was very interesting. And what I loved about it again, and I talked to you about this, is that the movie is a small scale film, and yet Nolan's ideas are big. This is a big idea. I thought it was executed very well, and I liked seeing the little things come together. I really enjoyed that. Like Natalie's character, when we first meet her, I'm like, oh, she's helping him, and then we learn more about her, and we're going backwards. Like, oh no, she's not a nice person.
Right.
There was little nuggets. There, one of my favorite scenes, and it's so small. It's not really significant to a lot of people, but I really enjoyed it. Is when he met her at the bar, and she goes, "What are you doing here?" And he goes, "Oh, are you? I'm looking for Natalie. I found this in my jacket." And she's like, "Your jacket?" And I'm like, what does she mean by that? And then you find out later that it's someone else's outfit. It's not his, but it was in the pocket because that guy was supposed to meet Natalie, and then he takes it out thinking he was supposed to meet Natalie. And I'm like, wow, this is just like a series of unfortunate events that led him here. And she realized, I'm going to use him as well. Everybody uses Leonard in this movie.
Right.
The guy who runs the hotel uses Leonard by
Right.
booking him multiple rooms. They're taking advantage of this individual with this amnesia that everyone in this movie is taking advantage of him. And even by the end, he himself is as well.
Right.
And that's wild that he himself is like, you know what? I'm going to take advantage of this situation. I'm not going to be able to remember this. All right, let's play with the facts a little bit
Right.
in order for me to be happy. And it's like, oh my God.
Right. And it's so sad that the only way he could keep happy is to continue searching for John G. You
Yep.
know, unfortunately.
And he'll never it is very sad because in a way he'll never have that peace. He will never truly be able to grieve her loss
Right.
because every few 15 minutes it's always super fresh to him because time doesn't really continue. He doesn't
Right.
build new memories. So he's constantly stuck in that recent time where she could be dead for 5 years and to him it'll still feel like maybe a few months. You know what I mean? Like it's a very 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 tragic ending.
Absolutely. So I took a look at the credits and such, and Summit Entertainment was involved with the production. Team Todd. It was distributed by Newmarket,
Mhm.
and they are responsible for some movies from the 90s and 2000s. The Mexican, Cruel Intentions,
Yeah.
so um, they also were involved with other movies distributing, such as The Passion of the Christ, Whale Rider. So it's not like, so right now we're used to like Paramount, Warner Brothers, Disney,
Yes.
so, this company helped give Christopher Nolan his first major studio chance. The budget is listed between $5 and $9 million,
Mhm.
and it made 40 million at the box office. So
Well deserved.
yes, absolutely. For a small movie like this and such. So from the jump, Nolan is making back the money that he was
Dude,
given.
like, that and
And then
studios
some.
eat that up. Studios eat that up. They got a
Right.
director who's coming in there with a very limited budget in comparison to big blockbusters and pulling that much of a return. You can see why Nolan's career just kept getting bigger, bigger, and
Right.
bigger and bigger because he just kept nailing it. And again, this movie feels small, but the idea is big, and you just can't help but feel Nolan's presence. And at the time, obviously, this is before a lot of the other things that come out later in his career. But at the time, I was like, oh man, that was really good. Like that
Right.
was really good. And it's a movie that I've also said that I've watched it more than once. I haven't seen it in years and got to
Yeah.
watch it again for this. And I was just like, it was like watching it for the first time again because it's that engaging. I'm just like, my God, it's so good.
Yeah, absolutely. So it is an original, uh, a theme that
Hmm.
follows Nolan for a lot of his career. Um, I read that it was well, he wrote it. He wrote the script and he directed it. And it was based on a short story by his brother, Jonathan Nolan. And his brother wrote a story called Memento Mori,
Mhm.
and but for all intents and purposes, this does count as original because he wrote an entire script, and
Yes.
it was he changed the names. It wasn't really like a word for word remake of his brother's short story, and he
Yeah.
would go on to collaborate with his brother many times over the course of his career. After this, the backwards works. I've
It does.
seen a lot of things online where people discuss watching the movie forwards,
Mhm.
and they say it doesn't work as well
It
because
won't.
he ends up killing Teddy halfway through the movie.
Mhm.
And then you're like, "Oh, no." Like,
Yeah.
there's, well, there's nothing left to do, because
Yeah.
it ends up happening that way because we get the black and white and then the fading and then, into the color as well.
Again, the intrigue is how we got where we are.
Right.
The intrigue isn't in this movie in a traditional sense of where are we going? It's like how did we get here? And so if you put that in order, it kind of takes away where the intrigue is. We are getting the results of the movie and we're like, okay, how did we get here? Why did he kill him? Why can't he trust him? If you start off the gate already with that a lot of information, it's not as fun. It's just not as
Right.
fun. It's not as engaging.
There was a lot of things that made this movie. I felt the score was well done. Uh, it has film noir aspects, like that old school,
Yes.
like the Gumshoe movie,
Yes.
Hitchcock a little bit. Um, Guy Pearce is very flat, but his delivery works for this movie.
It
You know,
works.
with that flat tone there. There were several themes within this movie of, you have to lie to yourself to continue being happy,
Mhm.
and also with staying with the pain because the pain gives you purpose almost.
Yeah.
Um, because Leonard, he never wants to forget what happened to his wife.
Mm-mm.
I'm going to I want to feel sad every time I think about it because what was done to her and what was done to me is horrific. Um, the scene with the prostitute stood out to me
Mhm.
because it wasn't a sexual situation. He just wanted to remember his wife for a night,
Yeah.
and with the way that the scene goes, it's almost like he's done this before.
Yeah.
He just it's sad. He asks her, just put these things around the room and fall asleep next to me, wake up and slam the door.
Yep.
And she's like, "That's it?" He's like, "That's it." She
That's it.
starts reading the book. She tries to brush her hair. He's like, "No, no, no. All you have to do is put it around the room, fall asleep next to me, and go to the bathroom."
Yep.
She's like, "Okay, fine. It's your dollar."
Yeah.
And
Yeah, exactly.
um and to that note, um while it might be implied that something happened between him and Natalie, I don't believe any type of sexual situation happens with Leonard and anybody else in this movie.
I don't think so either. He
Yeah,
wakes up next to Natalie, and
right,
that's about as far as we got, and based off of everything else, I don't think they ever hook up. I never got that notion.
right,
She is using him, but I think she understands, and she made it very well known, she understands that his memories is shot regardless, so there would be no reason to hook up with him. She gets no gain from it.
correct,
Um, she's using him already. She doesn't have to go above and beyond by sleeping with him in order to get anything from him because she knows he's not going to remember it anyway. It gives her nothing. And
exactly,
basically, what we've seen from her is she's just using him.
right.
That's it. So there'd be no need for that to happen.
Yeah, like there's a scene where he's panicking, so she he takes his shirt off and she's like, "Listen, we need to get you some air." So, and then that's when she sees all the tattoos. And if you notice in the, it fades, but in the bed, she's fully clothed and he
Hmm.
has his shirt off. And that's because he had taken his shirt off earlier. So that's another reason why I believe that I don't think anything sexual happened
Yeah,
between
I
them.
don't either. I
And
never got that.
I kind of respect that too, because it's almost like it's predictable now that people will get together in a movie, no
Yeah.
matter what. But Leonard is in so much pain. He's not thinking about being with another woman. He's
Mm-mm.
just trying to get John G. That's the only thing he cares about. So he doesn't do anything with the prostitute. He doesn't do anything with Natalie. We're assuming and I thought that was really refreshing when I saw this,
It's
because
good. It's good. And
yeah,
it,
it's
and it works for it works.
2001, you know?
Yeah, yeah, and it works for Leonard too because again, someone grieving over a loss over a few years would feel different, but to him, it's still so fresh. So the idea of him being intimate with someone else, it's almost impossible because the pain of his wife is still looming so strongly. It
Right.
feels like it just happened, and he can't really make that connection. And there was an interesting thing that Natalie said at one point. I believe it was Natalie. Correct me if I'm wrong. Where I think someone had told Leonard, like, okay, well, what happens after you kill this guy? Like, you're just gonna forget. And he goes, it doesn't matter if I forget, she still deserves vengeance. He is driven purely by vengeance. Like, that is it. So, like you said, there's no reason to be emotionally connected to anybody else.
Right.
There's no reason to be intimate with anybody else. There's no reason to be make friends with anybody else. He is so bent on vengeance, and that is it.
So there's a question that's brought up a lot where people say, "Do you believe Teddy was telling him the truth?" And I think he was, because the picture had blood on it. Now,
Mhm,
could that be faked? Absolutely. That could have been him and Leonard just having a good time one night, and he
mhm.
decided to take a picture of Leonard, but um, I don't know what Teddy has to gain by lying to him, telling him that they already got John G.
Yeah,
Because it would be a really big ask to say, well, why would he admit to using him to
mhm.
get people like Jimmy Grants and such? Why would he admit that to him, knowing he could lose everything? So I don't think Teddy was lying to him. Um, there's a question as far as, did his wife live or not? Did she leave him? Because how would he know?
Oh,
How would he
he
know?
wouldn't.
How
He
would he
wouldn't
know?
know.
Or did she live from the accident? We don't know that either. We
Yeah,
don't Did she live from the accident? Did she get the insulin shots? And that's just Nolan, man. That's signature Nolan. He leaves it up to you. There's a final shot of the movie where you see a tattoo with him next to his wife, and it says, "I did it."
yeah.
I did it. So, and then that's like an alternate version of where his wife lived, and he got revenge for her.
I'm like you. I think Teddy was telling the truth.
Right.
I think that from just a writing standpoint, I think it makes the ending that much more tragic, which is what I felt by the ending. I felt like, okay, this is a very tragic story. And I feel like it only hurts that much more knowing that Teddy was telling the absolute truth. It is the only Polaroid that we see with him physically in it, which lets us know someone else took it,
Right.
and he's smiling. There's happiness, there's joy,
Right.
and we know that this is after the accident. We know that. We're like, hey, this is after the accident, because he has no recollection of this picture being taken. So we know, okay, this was after the amnesia happened. I'm like, I can't think of one thing that would get him in that type of to give off that type of emotion. They could have been joking and playing around and whatnot, but you do see blood and he's shirtless, and something definitely happened. And like you said, Teddy doesn't gain anything by telling him that truth of saying, I've been using you.
Right.
Like he goes, look, man, like they used you, I used you. Okay. We tried it. You got them, you forgot, but you're so driven to do this. And I'm like, all right, we're just going to continue to find you with John G to hunt, and it's just I'm with you. I believe him. I think he was absolutely telling the truth.
Yeah, and it just makes it all so much sadder,
Yeah.
knowing that his wife did survive the accident, and
Yeah.
he accidentally killed her with the insulin.
Yeah.
That's, oh my gosh, so heartbreaking. And they don't even go into it, like, why wasn't he institutionalized for it? Because in the story, Sammy was institutionalized,
Mhm.
but in real life, we don't know how did Leonard get away with it. So then
Yeah.
that's the ambiguous part. Like, did they find out that, oh, he didn't know what he was doing? Did he already serve time in the institution? Did
Yeah.
there's just a lot of ambiguity, but I'd like to believe everything that Teddy said at face value as well, because he wouldn't continue helping him, you know.
Yeah, he wouldn't. And they were gonna continue. Teddy was like, "We're gonna do it again. Like,
Yep.
this is what we do. Teddy almost weirdly enough became a hunter, and he used Leonard to hunt these people down, and I like the ambiguity of it all. I love that about Nolan. I love it because it opens conversation. I love that people can debate. They can say, "Oh, well, maybe she lived. Maybe she left
Right.
him." I like that idea. Like, who's to say that's not what happened? And it's sad because because he's essentially hunting a guy that doesn't exist. If he is responsible for killing his own wife, he's hunting nothing. He's hunting
Right.
an imaginary person that he's going to continuously put a face to and put a name to in order to just deal with his pain. And it's just, but that those final shots of him driving up to the tattoo spot and him writing down on the Polaroids, and you realize that he's setting into motion to just continuously do this again. And it's like, oh, what a horrible, horrible ending. He will do this until he can't go anymore.
So we got to look at the Jankis, Mr. and Mrs. Jankis. We have Stephen Tobolowsky
Mm-hmm.
of Groundhog Day,
Yeah.
to play Sammy. And I said it before, Harriet Sansom Harris as Mrs. Jankis. We have Guy Pearce as Leonard Shelby in the lead.
Mhm.
Um, he's done a lot of things over the years, but for me, this is my favorite role for him.
Oh, easily. Easily. I like Guy Pearce too. I've had fun with Guy Pearce.
Yeah.
He's all over the place. You got him in comic book films like Iron Man 3. You got him in sci-fi films like Lockdown. You've got him in Prometheus with the prosthetic old guy makeup that people didn't even know that was Guy
Right.
Pearce. It was just like, that's Guy Pearce. Like, yeah, he's in crazy old man prosthetic makeup. I'm like, they could have just cast an older actor, and they were like, no. We're getting Guy Pearce. And
Yeah.
I'm a huge fan, but this is probably my favorite role from him, or my favorite film with him starring, because the movie rocks, man, and guy was great in it.
Yeah, it was. I want to say LA Confidential was the one that really got some attention on him. People love that movie. But for
Yeah.
me, this is my favorite. I mean, sorry, I'm biased.
Ain't nothing wrong with it. Ain't nothing wrong
Yeah.
with it.
We have Carrie Ann Moss, who had a
Mhm.
string of movies, for the past few years leading up to this, including The Matrix. And
Yes.
she played Natalie, as well as we had another Matrix alumni, Joe Pantoliano
Mhm.
as Teddy. He was in The Matrix. He's been in so many different things over the years. A lot of folks may know him from Sopranos. He had a really huge role in The Sopranos.
Mhm.
Such great delivery from everybody that was in
Yeah.
this. We have Mark Boone Jr. as Bert,
I love
the
him. I
the
love him.
motel manager. Yeah, Sons. Oh my gosh, Sons of Anarchy, Batman Begins. You name it, he's been in it.
I love
So
him. For whatever reason, I don't know why. Whenever I see him, the first film I go to is 30 Days and 30 Night, 30 Days of 30
there
Night,
we go.
the
Yeah,
vampire movie. I don't know why. I see him, the beard, the long hair. That's the first thing I go to, and I'm like, oh, he was in Sons. He's in Batman Begins.
right.
Like, yeah, he's awesome. I like him a lot.
And we don't hear her talk much, but we have Georgia Fox as Leonard's wife.
Yeah.
So she was nice. It was nice.
Yeah.
It was this would not be the last time with a Nolan trope with a man and his estranged wife, or
The memories of the wife and what they used to
yeah,
have and whatnot.
absolutely, and Nolan, he would go on, and as we go through this filmography, we will continue examining that, how
Mhm.
a husband and a wife, their strained relationship,
Yeah.
there's always something going on there. So um I believe I don't recall her being in too many different movies. I think she was in ER.
I will
Hell,
be honest, I'm not familiar with her work outside of seeing her in this.
yeah, here we go. CSI.
Okay.
ER and CSI. So those are like the two main things, folks would know her from. So
Okay.
um we are going to go through some lines now. We're going to do some scene
Oh,
studies, some
yeah.
line readings, and I I ha- I had way too much fun thinking about me playing all the other characters because I really wanted Ricardo to be Leonard
I'll
for
be
these.
Leonard.
Yeah,
I'll be Leonard.
Ricardo's got a lot of experience playing leading men, so it was an easy decision for me. So this first scene is the meeting between Bert and Leonard at the hotel. So you find out that Bert's taking advantage of Leonard.
All right.
Oh, this is the wrong room. You're in 304 now. I'm sorry, I effed up.
This is not my room.
Nah, come on, let's go.
Oh, why is this my handwriting?
This was your room, but now you're in 304.
When was I in here?
Last week, but then I rented you another room on top of it.
Why?
Business is slow. I mean, I told my boss about your condition and stuff, and he said try to rent him another room.
So, how many rooms am I checked into this S-hole?
Just two so far.
Well, at least you're being honest about ripping me off.
Well, you're not going to remember anyway.
You don't have to be that honest, Bert.
Leonard, always get a receipt.
It's good advice. I have to write that down. Leonard has, there's a sense of humor that Leonard has in this movie.
Right.
Where there's a couple times where he's a smart aleck with some people and whatnot. And this was one of those scenes where I could feel some of that humor come through, where even he's just like, well, at least you're being honest about ripping me off and whatnot. And I love the, like, that's good advice. I should write that down. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know why. It's just like he's making light of the situation, even though this guy is ripping him off. Because I got nervous. I did get nervous in the scene because he brought him into the room. He goes, oh, wait, this isn't your room. And he goes, why is my handwriting? So I was like, wait, okay, why does it have his handwriting? What's going on? Who is this guy? And he's just like, no, we're just charging you extra because of your condition. I was like, ye sly dogs. You sly dogs.
I want to say this is the first time in the movie we see somebody take advantage of Leonard, and it would not be the last. But this is the first time. It's just such a dangerous thing to not be able to make new memories. Like you would forget. Some people have a thing where they forget what happened the day before. Imagine forgetting what happened 15 minutes from now. Like it would be awful.
Yeah. And it's I've seen it. What was that one film? 50 First Dates, where it's used to a very comedic effect. Right. But then you see something like this, and when you remove that comedy aspect of it, and you kind of watch, you go, "Oh my god!" Like if you really think about that, that is a horrible experience, and it exists. And I couldn't imagine, like you said, a day, but just a few minutes, just walking out of a room. Leonard, like you said, gave like a 15-minute window, and it's like that's wild.
Right. So in this next scene is the first time we meet Natalie at the restaurant, and so there we go.
All right. Natalie.
You don't remember me.
Sorry, I should have explained. You see, I have this condition.
You did explain, Lenny.
Please call me Leonard. My wife called me Lenny.
You told me.
Then I probably told you how much I hated it. Could you take off your sunglasses? It's just hard for me.
Yeah.
So, you have information for me?
Is that what your little note says?
Yes.
Must be tough living life according to a few scraps of paper. Mix up your laundry list and your grocery list, you'll be eating your underwear. But I guess that's why you got those freaky tattoos.
It is tough. Almost impossible. I'm sorry I can't remember you. It's not personal.
I'm sorry. I do have information for you. You gave me a license plate number. I had my friend at the DMV trace it. Guess what name came up? John Edward Gamble. John G.
You know him?
No. But the photo on his license looked familiar. I think he's been in the bar before. This is a copy of his registration, license, photo, and all. Are you sure you want this?
Have I told you what this man did?
Yes.
Then you shouldn't have to ask.
But even if you get revenge, you won't remember it. You won't even know it's happened.
So I'll take a picture, get a tattoo. The world doesn't disappear when you close your eyes, does it? My actions still have meaning, even if I can't remember them. My wife deserves vengeance, and it doesn't make any difference whether I know about it.
Tell me about her again.
Why?
Because you'd like to remember her. I want to see you enjoy yourself.
She was beautiful. Perfect to me.
Don't just recite the words. Close your eyes. Remember her.
You can only feel details, bits and pieces which you didn't bother to put into words, and extreme moments you feel even if you don't want to. Put it together and you get the feel of the person. Each to know how much you miss them and how much you hate the person who took them away.
I wrote an address in there too. Might be useful. It's the abandoned place outside of town. A guy I know used to use it for his bigger deals.
Deals?
It's isolated.
Sounds perfect. What do I owe you?
I wasn't helping you for money.
Sorry.
It's not your fault. See, you have this condition.
You have this condition. See, look, at this moment when we meet her,
Right.
I'm thinking she's helping this guy out.
Right.
And especially because she goes, I'm not doing this for money. And so I was like, oh, okay. She's help. Okay, maybe there's a quick pro quo here that I don't know about. But all right, I'm vibing with Natalie, only to find out later. No, I'm not.
Right. Exactly. And I wanted to have us read this scene because it gives us a nice glimpse into Leonard's process and
Mhm.
how somebody else views it. This is somebody that only knew him for less than a day. So
Yeah.
she's in a way, I mean, she believes him, but then she's just like, I want to see if he's telling the truth,
Yeah.
So you don't remember me, and then she's got this envelope. She's dropping little bits here and there, but nope. Sorry, Natalie, nothing personal. He does not remember you, and and we're kind of like we're forced into liking her because
Yeah.
she's helping him, not knowing the disgusting things she had done to get to this point.
And it's
So,
it's I also like that he told her to take off her sunglasses because there was a point in the movie where he said you can gauge it a lot from people's eyes, where you can tell if a person recognizes you or has seen you based on how they look at you. So there are times where he'll look at somebody and the way they look at him can give him an interpretation of maybe they've met. He just doesn't remember it. And I thought it was very important that he was like, "Can you take it off? I kind of have this thing," because he really wants to study her eyes and how she looks at him. And I thought that was a cool little tidbit. Okay, so I feel good because I wasn't wrong. It was Natalie who said, "Why would you like? Who cares? Like you're gonna do it, you're gonna forget anyway."
right.
And that's when he says, like, "Hey, it doesn't matter if I forget. Like she deserves vengeance." I was like, "Okay, I feel good that
Right,
I remembered."
exactly. So there was a foreshadowing there.
Yeah,
How are you going to remember? He's like, I'll take a picture. And you know, in the script, it says he looks annoyed, and you watch the movie, he looks annoyed.
yeah,
And then eventually it comes to pass that he tells him, "No, you did it. It happened a year ago, and you
yep.
forgot."
And you forgot, and it's just
So
like, oh, that sucks.
yeah, it's sad. So this next scene I decided to include because it is the most we get to see of Leonard's wife,
Yes,
and lines. When you get to see glimpses of her, flashbacks, it's usually Leonard doing a voiceover,
yeah,
but we never really get to hear her talk. Not too much anyway. Just little words here and there. But this is the longest interaction I believe that they have in the entire movie. It's a flashback, of course. So
yeah.
Leonard's wife is reading a book, and Leonard's about to talk to her.
How can you read that again?
It's good.
You've read it 100 times.
I enjoy it.
Yeah, but the pleasure of a book is wanting to know what happens next.
Don't be a prick. I'm not reading it to annoy you. I enjoy it. Just let me read, please. It's just short but sweet.
It
It's
is.
it's funny, it's sweet, it's a nice glimpse into, their relationship, the type of relationship they had, like Leonard's a pretty analytical guy,
Yeah,
and he needs to be because he's an insurance, investigator. He needs to the facts. He keeps saying that
yeah,
throughout the movie. The facts are what matters the most, and in the insurance industry, it's the fact that matters, not hearsay. And it's almost like the law, with the legal system, facts matter, not hearsay.
yeah,
So in his mind, he's like, you already know what's going to happen. Why are you reading it? She's like, I like it. All right. I'm not doing it to annoy you. Just let me read in peace.
yeah.
And it was funny, but it's sweet at the same time.
It's an interesting perspective too because like you said, he's kind of like taken back. Where like, isn't the point of reading something wanting to see what's going to happen next?
Right.
You already know what's going to happen. So where's the fun in that? She goes, I enjoy it. Just let me be. She enjoys going through this process, even though she knows how it's going to end. And in a way, at the very end of the movie, Leonard knows how this story is going to end, but he still chooses to set himself up to continue down this path. Just let me be. Just let
Right.
me be. This is my piece. And I thought that was an interesting parallel to a degree.
Absolutely. So this next interaction is between Teddy and Leonard, and I liked this interaction the most. And it's another glimpse into Leonard's process and how he treats the people around him and such, um, and whether or not he remembers people. So the scene starts out with Teddy getting into his car, and let's go.
All right.
A car this nice you should lock.
Who the are you?
Teddy, your buddy.
Prove it.
Remember Sammy? You told me about Sammy. Jeez.
What the are you doing in my car?
What? Your sense of humor went with the memory? Do you know why you're here?
Unfinished business.
Lenny, let me tell you. Let me inform you. Your business here is very much finished. You're still here because of Natalie.
Who's Natalie?
Schmuck. Whose house do you think you just walked out of? That's right. Take a look at your pictures. I bet you got one of her. Ah, nice shot, Leibowitz. You'll want to make a note. You can't trust her.
Why is that?
Because by now she's taken a look at the suit and the car, and she's figuring out ways of turning the situation to her advantage. She's already got you staying with her, for Christ's sake. You can't go back there. Let me give you the name of a motel. You're lucky I ran into you. That broad's bad news.
What do you mean bad news?
She's involved with drugs. Look, see, this is the bar where she works. Her boyfriend's a drug dealer. She takes orders for him, arrange meets. He writes messages on the back of these, and then she slips him the answers when she serves him his drinks.
Why should I care?
Because when she gets jammed up, she's going to use you to protect herself.
From who?
Guys are going to want to know what happened to her boyfriend. Guys are going to come after her. Somebody's got to pay, Lenny. Somebody always pays. Maybe she'll make it you.
Oh, yeah? Well, maybe she'll make it you. Is that it?
No,
Why not?
because she doesn't know who I am.
Why are you following me?
Maybe I want to help. She doesn't know anything about your investigation, okay, Einstein? So write this down. When she offers to help, it'll be for her own reasons. I'm not lying. Take my pen, write this down. Do not trust her.
There. Happy now?
I won't be happy until you leave town.
Why not?
You ever wonder how long you can hang around here before people start asking questions?
What sort of questions?
The sort of questions you should be asking yourself.
Like what?
Like, how did you get this suit? The car?
I have money.
From what?
My wife's death. I used to work in insurance. We were well covered.
So, in your grief, you wandered into a Jaguar dealership. You haven't got a clue, have you? You don't even know who you are.
Yes, I do. I don't have amnesia. I remember everything right up until the incident. I'm Leonard Shelby. I am from San Francisco.
That's who you were. You do not know who you are, what you've become since the incident. You wander around playing detective. You don't even know how long ago that was. Let me put it this way. Were you wearing designer suits when you sold insurance?
I didn't sell insurance. I investigated it.
Right. You're an investigator. Maybe you should investigate yourself.
Oh, thank you for the advice.
Look, do me a favor. Don't go back in there. Will you take the motel out of town? It's been fun, Lenny.
That whole exchange is so good
Woo!
because like again at this point I'm like, is Teddy telling the truth? But when you go through all that, you're like, you know what? Teddy's telling him the truth.
He's trying to let him know, like, it's, he doesn't want somebody else to lose their life. He
Yep.
doesn't want something to happen, like, thankfully Dodd barely escaped,
Yeah.
so, you
Yeah.
know, he
He's
didn't.
telling him, he's like, "Listen, she's using you. She's already plotting ways to use you. This and this and that." And I love that he goes, "You don't know who you are." And he goes at him, he goes, "No, that's who you were. You don't know who you are. You don't know how long it's been." And it's almost as if he's giving these little breadcrumbs of what we find out in the end. Is like, you
Right,
don't know what you become. You don't know who you are right now. And it's very interesting because again, at this point, we're just thinking he's saying things. Remember, don't believe his lies. We're just like,
right,
he's just saying things. But like,
and
no.
it's kind of funny, like, um, Leonard has this way of talking to people that even though it's already confirmed that he knows them, he looks annoyed when he's talking to people.
Yes, yes.
And it's just
There's
like, how ungrateful are you? You have this handicap and people are trying to talk to you and help you. And, but at the same token, he doesn't know how much he can trust people,
yeah.
So
There
obviously,
there's a cadence to him, and
yeah,
that's why, again, it's very short sometimes. Why? Okay, so what? You know what I
right.
mean? Like, it's very throwaway. It's funny.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you noticed, when he wrote on Natalie's picture, don't trust her, he did it in cursive.
Mhm.
And he's done it in print the entire movie, but for this one, he did it in cursive. And what does he do? He crossed it out. So that was a choice
Yes, it
that
was.
either Leonard or excuse me, Guy Pearce or Nolan did for that part. The only time Leonard ever crosses out something on the photograph is when it was in cursive.
Yeah.
Maybe he was frazzled because Teddy was talking to him. Fine, don't trust her. Like
It's the what I took away from that is he acknowledges that he knows his handwriting. So I insinuated that he writes it in cursive on purpose so that way if he ever looks back, he goes, "That's not my handwriting, so I should just ignore it." And he just
right,
scratches it out.
that's a
So
good one too.
I thought that was really cool because again, we learned the hotel room. He goes, "Oh, what? This isn't my stuff. Why is it my handwriting?" He looks at the photos. These are my handwriting, so he knows he can trust because he wrote it. So when he's like, "Don't trust it, don't trust her," he's like, he doesn't want to believe him, so he writes it purposely in cursive.
Right.
So if he looks at it later, he goes, "Yeah, that's not my
Right, and
thought.
then it
That's not
wasn't
my
until you
words."
flipped over Teddy's picture and it said, "Don't believe his lies." Up, well,
Yep, there it is.
it's so interesting too. From one sentence, that gave us an entire movie, "Don't believe his lies."
Don't believe his lies.
Yeah, it was able to give us an entire movie from that one lie that he told himself. This final section is Leonard's final monologue, and I had to include it here, so,
It's a good one.
Ricardo, whenever you're ready, please.
Okay. I have to believe in a world outside of my own mind. I have to believe that my actions still have meaning, even if I can't remember them. I have to believe that when my eyes are closed, the world's still there. Do I believe the world's still there? Is it still out there? Yeah, we all need mirrors to remind ourselves who we are. I'm no different. Now, where was I?
Then we end the movie.
That's
So
that's the that's the acceptance at the very end. He's like, "Yep, I gotta believe that this is it." But you know what? And then he goes, "Where was I?"
right.
He's reset. He's reset, and they're going right back into it again.
So, I've rewatched Memento many times over the
Mhm,
years. Um This was ranked very high in my all-time list,
mhm,
early on when I first saw it, and for a long time after that. It has since moved, and, we'll get to that one day, as far as our all-time movie lists, but it's still a fun movie to me in the
mhm.
sense that I'm enjoying seeing the story unfold, I'm enjoying seeing the actor choices from
Yes.
everybody, and you're almost trying to predict where it's gonna go next because you know it's going backwards. So
Mhm.
then it's like where the scene ends is where the next scene begins, and then the next scene begins and it ends where the previous scene began. So it's just such an interesting watch. Everyone's got their own delivery, but for me, Joe Pantoliano, his delivery is the one that kind of brings me in because he's the one that kind of like is bringing everything together for me
Yeah.
every time
Yeah.
I watch this movie. Almost like
Yeah.
he's us almost because he's in on
Yeah.
it.
It's interesting because Guy Pearce is obviously the lead and Leonard, but Teddy feels like the center because he's us. Like he's trying to help us connect these pieces. And he's such a charismatic actor that there are times where I'm like, is he just do I believe what he's saying because of that charisma, or is he being honest and truthful? And he does a really good job where there's moments where I'm like, no, he's not an undercover cop. I don't believe him. If I'm gonna, well, maybe he is.
Right.
No, he's playing him, or is he not? His charisma helps lean into that where I couldn't really tell if he was essentially a good guy or a bad guy. And yeah, he's great. He's absolutely great in the film.
Yeah. How was this rewatch for you? Since it had been some time since you last saw this.
Years. We're talking. This movie came out what 2001.
Yeah.
We're talking. I didn't see it in theaters either. I think I saw it around 2003.
Okay.
So we're talking about maybe like, oh my goodness. So again, it's one of those films that watching it again, I think with all films, I have a greater appreciation now that I'm older. I see things a little bit
Right.
differently. But this is one of those things where again, watching it now, I'm still taken back at the scale of the film in comparison to the idea. I love the aspect of going backwards, and there's almost like a theme of there of don't accept everything you see at face value. We have a tendency to do that as humans where we kind of see something and we go okay, and we just accept that aspect of information. And this movie does a really good job of giving you just a small piece of information. Again, when we first meet Natalie in the bar, I've made this assumption based off of just this one interaction that I can trust her and she's a good person. And then we start getting more and more information as the film continues. And I'm like, oh, I was completely wrong. And that's something that I really appreciated about this film. Watching it now is like, oh, wow. Like now that I'm older, like I understand, excuse me, how that affects me in real life. Sometimes I'll see something and be like, oh, okay, that's this. Yeah, that wouldn't, maybe I need to backpedal. Maybe I should go back and see how situations got here and how what led to these events and why this person feels this way or why this person acted this way. And I thought this film does a really good job of executing that. Again, the cast is great. The cast is fantastic. But watching it again, it's interesting because we've seen so many films from Nolan and the scale just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And it was awesome to kind of go back to what would be considered the basics, I guess, where it's just like, hey, he's got a very small cast, very limited location, and he's still gonna be able to pull me in. This in the same way he could pull me into a major blockbuster, he's gonna pull me into this intimate film. And I walked away thinking, just again, like Nolan's mind just works on its own frequency. He's
Right.
constantly thinking outside the box of in ways that I wouldn't imagine. And I've seen this movie years ago, and when I first saw it, I was like, okay, that was cool, right? I kind of just walked away like, oh, that was a cool movie. It's backwards, yeah, that's cool. And then watching it now, I'm like, man, there's so much more than that. The themes that they explore, the tragedy of it all, and everything else. So I have a greater appreciation for it now than I did back then. But that comes with a lot of films and age. But it watching it again, I was like, if Nolan ever decided that he wanted to make another small scale film, I wouldn't be like, oh, what happened? Like, why is he going backwards? I'm like, no, no, no. He hits small scale films just as hard as he does big films. We're perfectly fine.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're gonna wrap things up here. For me, my thing is if you're a fan of Nolan and you haven't seen this movie, or it's been a while since you've seen this, I would urge you to check this out to see. We know him as the blockbuster filmmaker. The
Yeah.
one that's done these big movies, the Dark Knight trilogy, the whole deal. We know him that he's done these grand scale movies, but check this movie out to see what he did with a small budget. Could you offer us some closing thoughts yourself, Ricardo?
Yeah, again, I think that no, we've said this time and time again in terms of movies in general, where you'll see a movie with a small budget, and we've actually seen it with movies as of late over the last few years, whether it be on streaming or whether theatrical. There are movies currently in the theaters right now that had somewhat of a smaller budget that are doing really well, and we've said time and time again it's not necessarily about the budget. If you've got a great story, if you've got great characters, if you've got great writing, you can make something great. And Nolan proved that in this film. Again, it's a very intimate film. We have a very small cast. but the story feels large, and he didn't need any kind of crazy visual effects or special effects or huge blockbuster money. He said, no, I can tell something essentially really small and make you feel something, and intriguing and unique and mysterious. Like you said, if you're into mystery, you should watch this. If and I could speak on this behalf, because again, I haven't seen this in roughly 20, 19, 20 years. You know what I mean? So like, to watch this again at this point in my life, I was like, wow. So like, if you haven't seen it in a while, I agree with you 100%. I think you should watch it again. If you've never seen it, I think you should go and watch it. But I'm happy, because when I watched this, it was like going back and seeing how Nolan started, and seeing how hard he started, because this was a huge success to me, watching it, where I was like, okay, like from the gate, you could tell that this director meant business,
Right.
and sky was the limit. And as we've seen, there's a reason why he does what he does as well as he does it. And when you go back and kind of watch, um, when you go back and watch this film, you see it. It's always fun. I think it's always fun to, when there's a director you really enjoy and really like, and you kind of go back to one of their earlier films, and you can still see that magic. You're like, wow, that magic's there already. Like this magic didn't. Nolan isn't better because he has blockbuster money. He's not better. He's just now has the money financially and technology to be able to show you things he might not have been able to show you in the past, because it wasn't available to him. But Nolan showed everyone in this film that with a great mind, with great writing and a great story, budget makes no difference. If you've got something great, it'll be great. And this movie is a clear indication of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Alrighty, folks. That was our breakdown of Memento by
Yeah.
Christopher Nolan. And I'd like to add that this movie made such a splash. Warner Brothers, they decided to give him another shot, and that's going to be our next movie. Well, they gave him his first shot with them,
Yeah.
yeah, in Insomnia, and then they kept him around for a while after that. So our next movie is going to be Insomnia. We're going to go through the
Yeah.
entire. We're going through the entire Nolan
I'm so
filmography.
hyped. I'm
In
so hyped.
Nolan, we trust. Let's go.
I'm so hyped. I get out when you brought it up and say, "Hey, we're going through the Nolan filmography."
Yeah,
I was so excited, because I'm like, "Oh, I get to watch all these Nolan films weekly."
yeah.
I'm so happy.
I'm excited too. There's a lot of movie fans and cinephiles,
Mhm.
and that appreciate Christopher Nolan. So I look forward to this journey as far as going through his filmography and doing breakdowns here. But folks, if you could please give us a like, share, and subscribe, it would really help us out, especially the subscribe. If you haven't already done so, that's going to help our reach. Also, please let us know in the comments below. What did you think about Memento and your first time seeing it, or upon your rewatch seeing it? Do you feel like the story works better because it's going backwards, or is that a little bit too much for you? Do you feel like you'd enjoy the story better moving forwards? A little bit of a movie trivia here. Apparently, there's a way to manipulate the Blu-ray or the DVD, one of the special editions. And
Oh, wow.
if you hit the buttons in a certain order, you'll get to see the movie in order. I've never done that. So
Interesting.
yeah, so maybe I'll do that one day, just to see if the
Yeah.
movie feels the same way. But that's it, folks. Please stay tuned. We have a lot more Christopher Nolan movies to come. We're going to go through his entire filmography. It's going to be a fun ride. So we hope we have you stick around for that. For Ricardo Segura, this is Anderson Marchak saying thank you for coming to the panel.